Have you ever lost something before? Your wallet, your phone, your child, your cat? We've all done it at least once, but we usually find what we lost. Government entities are not exempt from this either. This includes the United States government. But you could say what they lost was a little bit more important than a wallet or a phone. And no, I'm not talking about the millions of dollars that are just lost each year in the Pentagon.
According to some estimates, we cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
Today, we are looking into the time that the United States government lost a nuclear bomb.
Did you see the frightened ones?
I'm sorry. Did I say time? My bad. Today, we are looking into the times, yes, with an S, that the United States government lost a nuclear bomb.
Did you see the frightened ones? Did you hear the falling bombs? Goodbye, blue sky. Goodbye, blue sky. Goodbye.
There are 6 recorded times in U.S. history where the government lost a nuclear weapon. These events are referred to as broken arrow incidents. Now, when I say lost, I mean the weapon was unaccounted for any amount of time. So it's possible that maybe the weapon flew off the aircraft and the government retrieved it later. That is still considered a broken arrow incident. And I will go through all 6 of these incidents in order from least destructive to most destructive, in my opinion. It's March 10th, 1956, and a B-47 Stratojet is taking off from MacDill Air Force Base in Florida on a nonstop route all the way to Morocco, hopefully getting to the Ben Guir Air Force Base. On board this aircraft are 2 packages of materials used to make nuclear weapons. The crew manning this aircraft consists of Robert Hodgkin, Gordon Inslee, and Ronald Kurtz. Little did these men know that they weren't going to make it to their destination. So the aircraft makes a mid-air refueling with no issue at all. This was the last official sighting of the aircraft. When it comes time to begin their second aerial refueling over the Mediterranean Sea, the B-47 can't be reached over the comms. A large search effort was immediately started by the United States government, but they never found this plane, the people, or any of the materials on the plane. The only silver lining in this situation is that there was 0 chance of contamination due to how well the materials were packaged, and there was no possibility of a nuclear detonation. This one is so high up because, like I said, there's no chance of a explosion happening. It was just materials. It's still a broken arrow incident because nuclear materials were involved, but overall, besides losing 3 servicemen, this one was not a huge detriment to the United States government. 1965, the war in Vietnam is raging. The USS Ticonderoga, which had just been relieved of duty in Vietnam, is conducting an exercise off the coast of Okinawa Island in the Philippine Sea. Where this test was conducted was in Japanese territory. The test starts out and a 1 megaton B-43 thermonuclear bomb is placed onto an A-4E Skyhawk. The weapon is loaded without issue, and the Skyhawk, piloted by Lieutenant Douglas Webster, is pushed onto the elevator to be lifted up onto deck. And something to note about aircraft elevators, they are actually open to the sea and the air. So once you push it back, they should stop at a certain point. And if they don't, they'll actually fall back into the ocean, which is what happens here. So the Skyhawk is pushed onto the elevator, but it just keeps going back and back and back. The crew outside the aircraft is desperately trying to get Webster's attention, but for some reason he's not responding. He's looking down, and eventually the aircraft just rolls right off the back of the elevator and falls right into the water. A thorough search was started by the United States government, as always, but they never found the plane, nor Webster's remains, nor the bomb. It's still out there somewhere in the Philippine Sea. So if you're interested, hey, free nuclear bomb. Less than 2 years after the disappearance of the B-47 over the Mediterranean Sea, which we went over in the first entry, another broken arrow incident happens with another B-47. So it's a dead of morning on February 5th of 1958, and a B-47 crewed by Howard Richardson, Bob Lagerstrom, and Leland Woodward is wrapping up a simulated combat mission. On board the aircraft is a 7,600-pound Mk-15 nuclear bomb. During that time, when conducting simulated combat missions, a real bomb would be placed onto the plane just to simulate the actual weight and, I guess, heaviness of flying an aircraft during a real combat encounter. However, bombs used in these trainings always had the nuclear capsule removed off the bomb, so no nuclear detonation is possible. So the training goes well, and the B-47 is on its way back to Homestead Air Force Base when out of nowhere an F-86 fighter plane, which was not involved in this combat mission whatsoever, collides with the B-47. The plane, which was very close to its 10,000-pound carrying capacity due to the bomb being on board, starts to descend. Thankfully, Richardson is able to regain control of the plane, but their altitude is still decreasing at an alarming rate. Now, Richardson is kind of afraid that an emergency landing could detonate this bomb, and that goes back to this idea that every nuclear bomb has what you can call a common explosive in it. So a nuclear detonation won't happen, but a regular explosion will, and the nuclear material will be just spread all around. So I think Richardson was more afraid of a regular explosion happening and hurting the crew more than anything else. So Richardson is given the go-ahead to jettison the bomb from the plane. So he does so, and he drops the bomb right over Tybee Island off the coast of Georgia. The crew see no explosion from the bomb as it plummets into the water below, and Richardson is able to successfully land the B-47 at the nearest Air Force base. The bomb to this day has never been found. We have like a football field size area of where it might be, but it's more or less an idea of leave it be and don't mess with it. And tests have been done by the EPA to make sure that contamination levels aren't above what they normally should be. Thankfully, they're not. Now, the story should end here, but it doesn't. In declassified documents released in 1994, there was actually some testimony that was given in 1966 by then Assistant Secretary of Defense, W.J. Howard. And Howard says that the bomb that was dropped wasn't actually a dummy bomb. It actually had the nuclear capsule attached. So yes, the United States government, if we're going off the testimony of Howard, dropped a fully functional nuclear bomb on itself. Flying back to Seymour Jackson Air Force Base near Goldsboro, North Carolina, is a Boeing B-52 Stratofortress. On board is a crew of 8 men and 2 3.8 megaton Mk-39 nuclear bombs. The date is January 24th, 1961, and it's the height of the Cold War. The B-52 is just getting back from a round-trip flight to Canada and back. Before landing, though, the crew has to do an aerial refueling, but there is an issue. The refueling aircraft lets the commander of the B-52, Walter Tulloch, know that there is a fuel leak in the right wing of the plane. Ground control at Seymour Johnson tell Tulloch to circle around the nearby coast until the majority of their fuel is burnt. But when the B-52 arrives to the spot where they need to start circling, they realize the leak is a lot worse than what they thought. Ground control then tell Tulloch to immediately bring the plane back to base. But the pilots soon lose control of the aircraft, and the call is made to just abandon ship, or abandon airplane, I guess. So all 8 crew members just bail. 5 of the crew survive and successfully bail out of the aircraft and deploy their parachutes. 3 others, though, unfortunately, do not make it. The unmanned aircraft then crashes into a local tobacco field. Somehow both bombs on the B-52 became separated from the aircraft. We don't know if one of the deceased members of the crew let these go, or if just in the commotion they somehow became separated. But now we have 2 nuclear bombs that are 300 times more powerful than the ones dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, plummeting towards Earth. Thankfully, the parachute on one of these bombs deploys, and it lands safely near the wreck site. The other bomb is a different story. The parachute on this bomb somehow became detached, and this bomb just starts free falling towards Earth. And it hits the ground going faster than the speed of sound. When government personnel find the bomb after the wreck, it is 18 feet under the ground, and the arm and safe switch, which dictates whether or not the bomb is armed or not, is set to armed. Scientists to this day still have no idea like why this bomb didn't detonate. By all means, it should have, but we got very lucky and it didn't. If it had, though, a projected 19,000 people would have perished instantly. And this is definitely the closest the United States has come to bombing itself. So before getting into this entry, I'm going to explain why I put this one and the next one as low as I did. So the previous 3 broken arrow incidents I mentioned had the possibility of being deadly and having severe consequences, but thankfully that didn't happen. These next 2 had consequences, whether that was environmental consequences or actual harm to people. So we are now in 1968 Greenland, and a B52 is flying in a simulated combat mission over Baffin Bay. We don't know how this happened, but somehow a cabin fire broke out in this B52, and all 7 crew members bail out. And 1 actually dies during this process, which is a very interesting theme we see with all of these. It seems like when people eject aircraft, there's a very good chance that they might die from it. And that could be from a head injury from hitting the aircraft on the way out, or maybe the parachute not deploying correctly. The plane, along with 4 1.1 megaton thermonuclear bombs, which were on board, crash into the frozen Baffin Bay. And all of the explosive components in these bombs detonate, which, like I mentioned earlier, these aren't the actual nuclear explosives. These are just the regular explosives within the bomb. So instead of a large nuclear detonation, we saw a series of regular explosions, but radioactive material is just thrown all across the crash site. And things didn't get any better. Due to the heat produced by the crash, specifically the fuel burning, the ice is melted underneath the plane and it starts to sink underneath into the bay. All of the radioactive material also starts to sink alongside it. Thankfully, after an extensive cleanup effort, most of the contaminated substance is located at the bottom of the bay alongside the remnants of the B-52 aircraft, which is still there to this day. Our last broken arrow incident, which in my opinion was the most devastating, is the Palom Mor's B52 crash. It's January 17th, 1966, and a B-52 crewed by 7 men and carrying 4 thermonuclear bombs is getting ready to do an aerial refueling over Spain. The aircraft conducting this refueling, a KC-135 Strato tanker, begins the refueling process. But due to what can only be described as a lack of communication, the B-52 collides mid-air with the KC-135. All 4 members on the refueling aircraft are killed instantly. 3 members of the B-52 are killed instantly, while the other 4 eject from the plane. Also ejected from the aircraft are the 4 thermonuclear bombs, and they start careening towards Earth. One of them lands in the Mediterranean Sea below and is found intact. The other 3 landed near the village of Palom Mor on the coast of Spain. So one of these 3 bombs lands in a nearby riverbed and is completely intact and did not detonate at all. However, like before, the non-nuclear explosive device on the 2 other bombs that dropped near Palom Mor detonated, and it spread radioactive material all across the landscape, including residential areas. Again, an extensive cleanup was conducted in the area, with many servicemen being exposed to high levels of radiation. And still to this day, the men who were there during the cleanup at Palom Mor are fighting cancers and leukemia, all sorts of diseases, and they actually saw a much higher death rate as compared to a test group of other military personnel. So there you have it, the 6 times the US government lost a nuclear weapon, or weapons in some cases. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. It means the world to me. If you enjoyed the video, give me a like, If you didn't like it, give me a dislike. If you really enjoyed the content, please consider subscribing. It helps me out a ton. And let me know in the comments, what do you think was the most, impactful Broken Arrow incident? Did I get the rankings correct? Do you disagree with me on some of them? Let me know in the comments below. And peace.